Chapter 3, Fractures. Tavian Marrow chose friendship the way richer boys chose gloves. Late, stylish, and probably because someone told him it would look useful. He found me 2 mornings after the courtyard collapse in the side gallery of the Glass Academy of First Measures, where I had been sent to repair a cracked resonance bracket under the supervision of no one, which meant either Master Voss trusted me or had decided my death would be educational. The gallery's glass ribs arched overhead, catching weak daylight and throwing it across rows of locked theory cabinets. My wrist still ached under fresh linen. Every time I tightened a screw, the scar under my skin pulsed like it objected to honest labor. "You are holding that driver wrong," Tavian said from behind me. I did not turn. "Good morning to you too, Marrow," I said. "Were you born unpleasant, or did the Academy polish you?" Tavian laughed and leaned over the railing above me, all clean cuffs and easy posture. "I am offering assistance," he said. "That generally works better if you begin after the insult." I looked up. "I would hate to ruin your method." He came down the side steps with a small leather case tucked under one arm. "You nearly fainted during the collapse," he said. "I saw you by the column." I set the driver down carefully. Many people saw me by the column. It was a public column. Very approachable. Tavian crouched beside the bracket and opened his case. Inside were chalk sticks, a thin brass compass, 2 polished resonance needles, and a slate engraved with Academy formula lines. "You are reacting too late to the draw," he said. "That is why your hands shake after small lithic contact." My stomach tightened. "Interesting theory," I said. "Shame it assumes contact." "Everything assumes contact here," Tavian said, tapping the floor. "Stone, metal, pressure, current. The only students who pretend otherwise are the ones waiting to be assigned a polite career." He drew a small circle around the bracket with chalk. "Try this. Map the weight before you pull it." I stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" He smiled without looking up. "Because you are either the most interesting irregular student in the Academy or the worst liar in the lower districts. Possibly both." That did not answer the question. "It did," he said. "It answered why I am still here." I should have told him to leave. Instead, I watched the chalk circle settle against the stone and felt the bracket's stress line sharpen in my awareness. Tavian's technique worked. That annoyed me because gratitude is harder to hide when attached to competence. "Fine," I said. "You know theory." Tavian's smile grew. "And you know things theory does not explain." I picked up the driver again. "Careful," I said. That sounded almost like friendship. His expression softened just enough to be convincing. "Would that be so terrible?" he asked. I almost answered honestly. Then Halvane's warning crawled through my memory, and I tightened the bracket until the screw squealed. "In my experience," I said, "friendship usually arrives before the bill." The invitation came wrapped in scholarship, which is how the Academy disguised most traps that did not involve rope. Tavian waited until I finished the bracket, then slid a folded paper across the workbench with 2 fingers. "There is a study circle tonight," he said. "Advanced theory. Off-register, but not reckless." "Off-register is a rich phrase for reckless with better shoes," I said, unfolding the paper. "No names, no seal, just a location near the old glass kilns and a time after the second curfew bell." "Why invite me?" Tavian leaned against the bench. "Because the registered lessons are useless for anyone with more than one question in his head." "I have several," I said. "Most are crimes now." "Exactly." He glanced toward the door, then lowered his voice. "There are students who believe the first siphon should not decide the rest of your life. Cross-affinity theory, ritual reform, private experiments, source ethics. The professors call it dangerous because it makes their lectures look embalmed." I looked at the paper again. Reform, cross-siphoning, private experiments. Every word pressed against the hidden shard beneath my floor, against the scar under my bandage, against my parents burning behind a stone wall. "Are these students ascensionists?" I asked. Tavian's mouth tilted. "Some admire the unbound reformers." "That is not no. No is what people say when they want you to stop listening." I should have stopped listening. I went anyway. That evening, after Doreen fell into a suspicious half-sleep behind the partition and Master Voss locked himself upstairs with ledgers, I slipped through the canal lanes toward the abandoned kiln house with my hood low and Rusk Bellamy's black card heavy in my pocket for reasons I refused to examine. The kiln house squatted behind a row of shuttered dye shops, its old vents coughing steam from the ground like the building still remembered fire. Tavian met me at the side door and raised an eyebrow. "You came," he said. I came to confirm my poor instincts, I said. Do not look flattered. Inside, a dozen students and 3 adults stood around a cold kiln pit marked with chalk diagrams. At first, it looked like theory, source chains, affinity drift, first siphon variants. Then one of the adults turned, and I saw the green-black thread at her wrist. Vitalist sympathy, not a hidden whisper. A declaration for anyone who knew where to look. This is Dorian Heartlander, Tavian said. He asks useful questions. A broad man near the kiln smiled. Does he ask whether dead matter deserves more protection than living children? He asked. The room went quiet. Usually I start with introductions, I said, but I admire the efficiency of making me uncomfortable first. The woman with the green-black thread stepped forward. The rights are cages, Dorian. The keepers of measured power call control morality. We call it theft. I looked at Tavian. His face gave away nothing. You said study group, I murmured. He answered softly. It is. For 20 minutes, the kiln house almost convinced me. That was the shameful part. They spoke with heat, not just Pyrrhic metaphor, but the kind of heat the Glass Academy trained out of people before selling it back as sanctioned conviction. The woman called herself Sella, no house name, no rank. She talked about children assigned to stone quarries because their first siphon drew lithic, about girls sent into healing orders after vitae flickers they never asked for, about families buying secondary rights for sons while daughters became labor contracts. The first breath should be awakening, she said, palm flat against the chalked kiln rim. Not sentencing. I leaned against a pillar and hated how much of me agreed. Tavian watched me from across the room, his expression quiet, almost hopeful. And your solution? I asked. Open trials, Sella said. Protected cross-siphoning. Public access to source theory. End the Vault Keeper's monopoly. Reasonable, I said. Suspiciously so. Where's the part where someone sets a building on fire? A few students laughed. The broad man did not. He said, if the building houses cages, fire is mercy. The laughter died. The conversation shifted after that. Not by accident. A map came out. Weighted by kilnstones. It showed a Vault Keeper right convoy scheduled to move through the Stoneward Road in 3 days, carrying lithic cores, 2 arrested Vitalist sympathizers, and several initiates being transferred for classification. We stop it, the broad man said. Cut the rear axle here. Burn the front carriage. Free the initiates before the scouts regroup. I straightened. Burn the front carriage? I asked. Disabled guards are easier to negotiate with, he said. Dead ones even more so? I asked. Sella's jaw tightened. No one wants death. That is a lovely phrase people say while drawing ambush routes, I said. Tavian stepped in. The convoy is protected by armed keepers. If challenged politely, they will not apologize and release prisoners. I know what Vault Keepers do, I said, sharper than I meant. I also know what happens when righteous people get comfortable with bodies. The broad man looked at my bandaged wrist. Spoken like someone still hoping the cage will give him a blanket. My scar flared under the linen, and for 1 second the kiln's old heat memory rose around me, eager and close. I could pull it. I could show them why no one should corner a boy they thought was useful. I did not. Barely. I stepped away from the map. Tavian followed me to the side passage. Dorian, he said. Wait. I turned on him before the door. You did not invite me to study. You brought me to recruiters. His mouth tightened. I brought you to people willing to speak the truth. Truth does not need an ambush plan to be true. Sometimes it needs teeth, he said. You know that. The near confession moved between us, ugly and tempting. My parents, the gray coats in the fire. The shard. Halvane's warning. Doreen's future being weighed before she even entered the first hall. I know cages exist, I said. I am not convinced every person holding a hammer should call himself liberation. Tavian lowered his voice. If you have an unusual affinity, they will never let you remain yourself. These people can protect you. Everyone keeps offering protection, I said. It is amazing how often it sounds like ownership. Behind him, Sella called, Heartlander, you cannot stand between systems forever. I opened the door into the cold alley. Good, I said. I am tired of standing. Tavian caught my sleeve. Not hard, but enough that my wrist burned. You will come back, he said. I looked at his hand until he released me. That depends, I said, on whether you are my friend before or after you sell me. Doreen's offer arrived the next morning on cream paper with a gray seal, which was how danger dressed when it wanted to be invited inside. She read it twice at the kitchen table above the workshop, her face still enough that I knew the words had teeth. Master Voss stood near the stove, pretending not to hover, while I leaned against the doorframe, pretending I had not come home smelling like cold kiln smoke and bad politics. "Well?" I asked. Doreen folded the letter carefully. "Lady Quen of the Gilded Houses is offering me an apprenticeship in her vault-keeper household accounts." I blinked. Accounts? Material ledgers, ration records, apprentice stipends, source inventories. "That is not an apprenticeship," I said. "That is being locked in a room with numbers until Mercy dies." She looked at the seal. "It pays." That stopped me, because we both knew what that meant. Real pay. Registered pay. Work that put food on the table without dodging inspectors, clerks, or market bosses who thought poor girls should be grateful for stale bread and long hours. "How did she know your name?" I asked. Doreen did not answer quickly enough. Master Voss finally stopped pretending. "Lady Quen funds several Academy relief placements," he said. "After the fall site, the vault keepers are absorbing vulnerable workers into sanctioned roles." I looked at him. "Absorbing," I said. What a soft word for swallowing. Doreen pushed back from the table. "Do not start." "I am not starting. I am identifying the mouth." She stood, letter in hand. "I know what it is." "Do you?" I asked. "Because from here it looks like a polished hook." Her eyes flashed. "And what do you suggest? I keep hauling market stock while men in gray ask where my brother stands during collapses? I wait until Halvain decides I am leverage and gives me a less polite invitation? This could be leverage. Everything is leverage," she snapped. "Poverty, rumor, your shard, my name, your wrist, Voss's silence, every road we do not have coin to take. At least this one has wages." Voss said quietly. "It would place her inside a protected household." I turned on him. "Protected by the same people watching me?" "Yes," he said, and did not flinch. "That is why it matters." Doreen's hand shook once around the paper before she tightened it flat. "If I accept, I get access to ledgers," she said. "Inventories, transfers, maybe names." The room went cold. "No," I said. She lifted her chin. "You do not get to say no before I finish the sentence." I heard the sentence forming. It was already terrible. "Dorian," she said, "you want answers. The vault keepers keep answers in ledgers. I can read ledgers." I pushed off the doorframe. "And if they catch you reading the wrong one? Then I smile and say I am new. That may work once. Then I will be very charming once." I laughed because anger needed a place to go. "This is not a market stall where you talk someone down from bruised apples." "No," she said. "It is a house full of people who think I am harmless because I am useful and poor." Her voice softened, which was worse. "Let them think it." I looked at Voss. He looked at the stove. Traitorous stove. "You cannot do this to protect me," I said. Doreen stepped closer. "You do not own all the dangerous choices in this family," she said. "You just take the loudest ones." We argued in the alley behind the shop because Master Voss said the upstairs walls were thin, and because I said the walls deserved to learn. Rainwater dripped from the gutters into a barrel between us, each drop landing with the patient rhythm of a clock counting down to a bad decision. Doreen held the letter under her coat dry and close. I paced because standing still made my fear louder. "Vault-keeper household accounts?" I said. "Very stable. Very respectable. Very likely to end with you filing receipts for the people measuring my bones." She crossed her arms. "They are not measuring your bones yet." Comforting. "We can celebrate the current softness of oppression. Stop making the enemy sound funnier than it is." "I do that so I do not set things on fire," I said. "Recently, that is not a metaphor." Her eyes dropped to my wrist. The scar burned as if offended by relevance. "Exactly," she said. "You are being watched. Voss is being watched. The Academy is being watched. Someone needs to be somewhere they do not expect teeth." I stopped pacing. "You are not teeth." She stepped forward. "I am not porcelain either. That is not what I meant. It is what you keep treating me like." The accusation hit harder because it had found an old bruise. "I am trying to keep you alive," I said. "So am I," she said. "But you keep confusing alive with untouched. We are past untouched." A cart rattled down the lane beyond the alley, wheels hissing over wet stone. I lowered my voice. "I went to Tavian's study circle last night." Her eyes narrowed. "That sentence is already guilty. It was Vitalist adjacent." "Dorian, more than adjacent. It was practically sitting in its lap." "Dorian, they are planning to hit a vault-keeper convoy near the Stoneward Road. That stopped her. The alley seemed to lean closer. When? She asked. 3 days. Will you tell Halvain? No. Will you tell Voss? Maybe. Will you interfere? I looked away. She made a humorless sound. There it is. I do not want to help Vitalists kill guards, I said. I also do not want initiates dragged to classification because someone decided their first breath needs a cage. Doreen's anger softened into fear. And you think I should stay out of danger while you walk into that? Yes, I said. Thank you for summarizing my excellent position. She came close enough that I could see the rain caught on her lashes. If I take this apprenticeship, we get inside knowledge before people like Tavian and Rusk become your only sources. I flinched at Rusk's name. She saw it. You still have the card, she said. I have many terrible objects. And you think my terrible object is worse because it comes with a gray seal? I had no clean answer. She knew it. You are afraid I will become complicit, she said. I am afraid they will teach you to survive by looking away. Then do not look away from me, she said. The words almost opened something in me. I almost told her about the living pull I had felt under the alley crowd, about how easy it had seemed for one breath to take from warmth and call it need. Then the rear door creaked, and Voss's voice cut through the alley. Both of you inside, he said. Halvain's clerk is at the front. Doreen folded the letter once, sharp as a blade. This debate is not finished, she said. I looked toward the shop. Nothing good ever is, I said. Doreen accepted before sunset. She did not ask permission, which was fair because I would have given her a speech and she had a long-standing allergy to my speeches when they involved her safety. Lady Quen's carriage arrived at the mouth of our lane, not grand enough to look royal and not modest enough to stop neighbors from peering through shutters. A gray liveried driver handed over a contract case while a vault-keeper clerk stood beside him with a registry slate. Doreen Veilhart, the clerk said. Apprenticeship probation, household accounts, source inventory assistance, stipend weekly, housing optional after first month. I stood behind her with my arms crossed. Optional housing, I said. Generous. The cage has a removable cushion. Doreen stepped on my boot without looking back. I accept the probationary placement, she said clearly. The clerk looked at me. You are not a party to the agreement. I am the suspicious furniture, I said. Ignore me. Doreen stepped harder. Master Voss reviewed the contract with the grave misery of a man reading a weather report that included knives. No binding residence clause, he said. No private source handling without supervision. No oath beyond standard confidentiality. Standard confidentiality, I said. The polite cousin of silence. The clerk's mouth tightened. This placement is an opportunity. Doreen looked at him with a smile so pleasant it made me nervous. I am grateful, she said. I nearly choked. She sounded sincere enough to frighten birds. The clerk stamped the slate. Report tomorrow at the 3rd morning bell to the Quen Annex, lower west entrance. He handed her a thin gray token, marked with the sigil of the Keepers of Measured Power. It looked wrong in her palm. Doreen closed her fingers around it anyway. The carriage left. The neighbors retreated. The lane returned to rain, mud, and consequences. Inside, Doreen placed the token on the table between us. I know what I'm doing, she said. I looked at the token. That makes one of us. Do not make this smaller with jokes. I am making it survivable. She sat across from me. Voss remained standing by the stove, quiet enough to count his furniture with secrets. I will not steal records immediately, she said. Good. Crime delayed. We are maturing. I will learn the schedules, the rooms, the clerks who drink too much tea, the ledgers no one wants touched, and the names that make people lower their voices. I looked at her then, and the fear in me shifted because she was not speaking like a girl taking wages. She was speaking like a knife, learning the map of a sleeve. Doreen, I said, softer. If it turns bad, you leave. If it turns bad, I signal you first, she said. No. Yes. Doreen, Dorian. We stared at each other until Voss sighed. You are both impossible, he said. Doreen picked up the gray token and tucked it into her pocket. Good, she said. Possible people get managed. I wanted to argue. I wanted to take the token, throw it into the canal, hide her from every gray coat in the city and every black cloak beyond it. Instead, I reached across the table and touched 2 fingers to her sleeve. Fine, I said, but if they give you a motto, do not bring it home. She smiled then, small and tired. Order makes worth? She asked. We already have a door. Stop, I said. The raid happened before the city finished pretending it had not expected one. By noon the next day, every bell in the Glass Cities had taken a turn announcing bad news, which was generous because the market had already done the work for free. A vault-keeper caravan had been hit on the Stoneward Road near the basalt mile markers, 2 wagons overturned, 3 guards dead, lithic cores stolen, initiates missing or scattered, and half the witnesses too frightened to agree whether the attackers wore Vitalist green threads, Black Harvester masks, or both. Convenient confusion, Master Voss said as he read the public notice nailed to the Academy board. Rain had softened the ink, making the official wording bleed down the paper like it was ashamed. The keepers blame the thieves of first breath, Tavian said from behind us. I turned. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, expression solemn enough to look borrowed. Do they? I asked. And what do your kiln friends blame? His jaw tightened. People died, Dorian. Yes, I said. That is usually what happens when men discuss mercy over maps. Tavian stepped closer. The convoy was carrying detained initiates. And lithic cores, I said. And armed guards. And probably 10 sealed ledgers, explaining why all of it was noble. You think that justifies classification? He asked. I think if someone says fire is mercy, I check who brought oil. His eyes flashed. You were there. The words were low, meant only for me. Voss looked between us. Where? He asked. I did not answer. Tavian saw the opening and closed his mouth, which was interesting and not comforting. Around us, students gathered in frightened knots. A third-year girl said, My brother was on Stoneward rotation. Another whispered, The Black Harvesters cut first breaths out of bodies. A clerk shouted for calm, which immediately made everyone louder. Across the courtyard, Inspector Halvain entered with 3 scouts and a blood-stained courier. The courier carried a torn scrap of black cloth in one hand and a cracked measuring rod in the other. Halvain read the courtyard like a ledger. His eyes found Tavian. Then me. Doreen reached us at the board, wearing her new gray token under her cloak. I hated seeing it, and hated more that it might protect her. The Quen Annex is sealed for inventory review, she said, breathless from crossing the Academy yard. They are saying the stolen cores came from a reserve no one admitted existed. Voss's face hardened. Of course they are, Tavian murmured. Then the raid exposed a lie. I turned on him. It also made corpses. Doreen looked at us both. What did I miss? She asked. A moral argument wearing muddy boots, I said. Halvain's clerk began posting a second notice. Volunteers required for recovery labor, healers, stabilizers, and transport assistance. Voss read it and cursed under his breath. They need workshop hands, he said. No, Doreen said immediately. I looked at the notice, then toward Halvain, then at Tavian's careful face. If the symbol from my memory is there, I said quietly, I need to see it. Doreen's mouth tightened. That is not a rescue instinct, she said. No, I said. It is worse. It is an answer instinct. Voss folded the notice down with one hand. Then we go supervised, he said. And if anyone asks, you lift crates and say nothing. I looked at Tavian. Can you manage that? He asked. No, Doreen and Voss said together. The Stoneward Road smelled of rain, blood, broken basalt, and hot axle grease. We arrived with the recovery carts under a gray afternoon sky, escorted by vault-keeper scouts who kept telling volunteers not to approach unauthorized debris while standing ankle-deep in it. The road cut east from the Glass Cities toward the Stoneward expanse, lined with old basalt markers carved by lithic guilds. 2 wagons lay overturned beside the ditch, their wheels snapped, their cargo frames torn open. One had burned from the inside out. The other had been cut apart with hooks. Do not touch bodies unless directed, a clerk shouted. Do not disturb cores, residues, weapons, bindings, restraints, personal effects, or marked blood patterns. A market volunteer beside me whispered. What can we touch? I said, apparently regret. Doreen shot me a warning look, though her face had gone pale. This was not rumor anymore. Rumor did not leave drag marks in mud. Voss put me on towing duty, which sounded safe until the first wounded workman screamed when we tried to lift him. His leg had been crushed under a sideboard. Not severed, not bleeding out, but the bones sat wrong under skin, and his breath came in short animal bursts. The field healer was 3 carts away, busy with someone worse. Hold him, Voss ordered. I can stabilize the board. The workman grabbed my sleeve. Don't let them cut it, he gasped. No one is cutting anything, I said, then looked at Voss. Right? Voss did not answer fast enough. The workman panicked. His pain hit the air in waves, and under it I felt the basalt road, the iron nails in the wagon, soot from the burned axle, and the terrible warm pulse of living tissue asking for what Vitae could do. My stomach turned. No living draw, I told myself, no matter what. I pressed one hand to the wagon frame and pulled lithic from the road, a thin, borrowed steadiness. With my thumb, I caught soot memory from the burned axle. Not flame, only dead heat, enough to soften the splintered sideboard without igniting it. The two affinities stacked in my palm, grinding together like bad gears. Pain lanced up my wrist. Now, I said. Voss stared at me for half a heartbeat, then shoved the loosened board aside and slid a brace under the man's leg. Good, he said tightly. Release. I did. The stack dissolved, leaving black dust under my fingernails and a tremor in my elbow. The workman sobbed with relief as two volunteers hauled him onto a litter. What did you do? Doreen whispered, gripping my shoulder. Lifted, I said. That was not lifting. Advanced lifting. Dorian. I wiped my hand on my trousers before anyone saw the soot. He needed time. She looked toward the healer, then back at me, and the argument died because the man was alive, and neither of us knew what to do with that. Voss leaned close while pretending to check the brace. Do not stack again unless I order it, he said. You order now? I asked. When you are about to kill yourself helpfully, yes. Across the wreckage, Halvain crouched beside a torn carriage panel, studying black residue around a hookmark. Tavian stood near a scout, face unreadable. Then a second wounded guard began choking near the ditch, and the healer shouted for support. Doreen's hand tightened. No, she said before I moved. I looked at the guard, then at my shaking fingers. I heard you, I said. Then I moved anyway. The dead harvester lay half under the overturned second wagon. One arm twisted beneath him, mask cracked across the beak. He was not the first body I had seen that day, but he was the first one that made the scar in my wrist go cold. A vault-keeper scout had dragged him clear while searching for stolen core seals, and his coat had fallen open at the throat. Beneath the collar, burned into the leather chest guard, was a sigil, a black hook crossing a broken gray scale, with a tiny star-shaped notch cut above the hinge. Not the ordinary black harvester sickle. Not vitalist green. Something combined, something deliberate. My memory moved before I did. Rain black as ash. My mother behind the stone wall. Men in black cloaks advancing. Gray coats watching from behind the fire. And on one man's chest, half hidden by smoke, that same broken scale with a star above it. I crouched before I knew I had stepped closer. Dorian, Doreen said behind me. Don't touch him. I know this mark, I said. My voice sounded far away. Voss came beside me, saw the sigil, and went still. Too still. Where? He asked. My dream, I said. Memory. The night my parents died. His face tightened. Are you certain? I looked up at him. I was a child, not blind. Halvain appeared on the other side of the body, as if summoned by the sound of hidden truth. That mark is restricted evidence, he said. Step back. I stood slowly. Restricted because it is harvester? I asked. Because it is evidence, he said. That was almost an answer. Halvain's gaze moved from me to Voss. You should take your assistant back to the recovery carts. He identified a mark, Voss said. Halvain's eyes cooled. He claims to have identified a mark. Doreen stepped beside me, voice sharp, from his parents' murder. The word murder landed hard enough to stop even the nearest scouts. Halvain did not flinch. That was answer enough to make my blood heat. Careful, Miss Veilhart, he said. Grief often edits memory. I laughed once, low and ugly. So does government. Tavian arrived at the edge of the circle, breath quick, eyes fixed on the sigil. That is not standard harvester sign, he said before he could stop himself. Halvain looked at him. And you know standard harvester signs how? Tavian's face shuddered. Academy histories. Then your academy histories are broader than approved. The moment stretched, and in it I saw Tavian's fear, Voss's dread, Doreen's anger, and Halvain's careful hand moving to cover the mark with the dead man's coat. Not destroy. Hide. No, I said. Halvain paused. No, you are hiding it. I am preserving the chain of evidence. With your sleeve? A scout coughed. Halvain's expression sharpened. Doreen grabbed my wrist before I could step closer, and pain flashed through the scar. The Starfall fragment, miles away under oilcloth, seemed to pulse in answer. For one breath, the wreckage around me became matter waiting. Basalt road, iron hooks, dead heat, blood-warm bodies, and the forbidden living pull underneath it all. I shoved it down so hard my vision sparked. Halvain watched my face. He had seen something. Maybe not enough. Maybe too much. Voss put a hand on my shoulder. "We are leaving," he said. I did not move. The sigil burned behind my eyes, the same mark from smoke and childhood terror. "They were there," I whispered. Doreen's grip softened, but did not let go. "Who?" she asked. I looked at Halvain as he covered the dead man's chest. "Not just harvesters," I said. "Not just vitalists. Someone built a bridge between them." Halvain's mouth became a thin line. "Take him away," he said. Voss pulled me back, and this time I let him, because if I stayed 1 second longer, the road itself might answer my anger. Here ends Chapter 3, Fractures,